When we spoke to people about their personal lives, we covered a range of subjects, including their upbringing, their spare time, and their interactions with other disabled people in Cornwall. Lifetime experiences in Cornwall as a disabled person.
I used to go to my aunt's and do a bit of ironing what she had, because she was an elderly person. I like ironing and that when I could stand.
So you used to help out, help
Yeah.
your auntie.
Make teas and all. And she used to say, because my cousin used to have a farm and she used to grow violets. We used to do violets, bunch them up, to send away. When she wake up, she used to bang on the agger there. She used to say, "Come on, I want a cup of tea." I used to wait and make it for her and bring it in.
So we lived, before Nick was born, we lived in Llanifit, which is a little village outside Bodmin. And we lived there for 4 years, and that was just wonderful. I just was a normal village kid, and, well, sort of. Because I thought I was a normal village kid, and in a little village, you can't get with anything if you went out with your mates, because we all did in those days. We just went off all day playing. But if you did anything wrong, whoever you'd done it wrong to was on the doorstep at home before you got back, so you got whacked by them for doing it, and then you got whacked and you got home again. But it was just, you felt very safe.
What you're describing there, so it's kind of small village life.
Small village life, it was just really idyllic. And Mum was in the choir, so you went to church on Sunday, then you went out with the choir would go around all the old farms at Christmas, because the farmers couldn't get away to go to the carol service, so you'd go around and sing carols. And we ended up, there's this little stately home called Lanhydrock, and the old lady who was the last one of that house was living in the lodge when I was tiny, and we sang for her, and it was terrible. We were sat, I remember it to this day, we were in this really beaten up minibus, and we stopped, and all of our parents turned to us kids and said, "Right, whatever you do, you're not allowed to say anything wrong, because this is talking to the lady in the manor," and they're sort of, whacking us in the head to make sure we didn't mess it up. So we went in and we were creeping in there and sang for this lady, and she was sat, and see her clear as day, tiny little lady, sat in this posh chair in her library. Didn't say a word, we just sort of did our bit and knuckled our forelocks, and she sort of waved a bit at the end, and she had this butler done it in a full rig, white gloves and silver salvers of sandwiches that he brought in. And it was amazing, and he was looking at me, because I was the tiniest kid, I was only at 3. And I think I'd only just started to walk, or I might not have even been walking by then. And he said, "Would you like a sandwich?" And I said, "Yes, please." It was ham, as I thought. So I took a bite, and it had mustard. Well, and I spat it out all over the floor. And my mum could have killed me. So needless to say, I got taken out pretty quick. But I remember that, I think, till my dying day. It's just this clear image of this woman, and then this butler looking as if he wanted to kill every child in creation, because I spat this thing out.
What was your home life like?
Very sheltered. Bit overprotective, really, I suppose. I would say I was allowed to do some things, but I wasn't allowed to do my own things, so I didn't have a choice, really.
Family in Cornwall.
My disability didn't always show until I grew up.
Until you're an adult?
Yeah.
You haven't been using a wheelchair for very long?
No, about 9 years. I run a house, I brought my son up. I consider myself a good mother.
What year did you get married then?
1994, after 10 years together. But I'm lucky, I've had a very good marriage.
You brought your son up. Has your son always lived in Cornwall then?
Yeah, Peter wants to move out of Cornwall because he says there's nothing here for him. And we work, he says, Mum, it's nothing here for me. Disabled mothers get looked down on. I know when I was bringing up my son, in the younger years, I had my husband with me. I had people watching me all the time and checking up on me, as if I wasn't managing. But I was. They weren't going to let me home from hospital until social services were there.
What kind of attention did you get? Did you have a lot of attention from social services?
For a while, till he went to school, then they backed off.
So when he was a tiny baby, really?
Yeah.
Did you have a social worker who was assigned to you?
Yeah. To see any help or any problem, which was great.
And was that helpful to you, though?
Yes, it was. At least know there was someone out there.
And so when your son started to go to school then, you noticed that they were less involved. Did you have less help from them?
Yeah. My son used to get people to say at school, oh, your mum's a spastic, your mum can't walk properly. And that really upset him. When my son was in his booty, I was out with my son and someone said, she shouldn't be out with that baby. I got stopped by a police car one night and asked if I was alright because I was staggering about a bit. In 1986, I was walking back from work. They thought I was drunk.
You were walking back from work. Where were you working?
In Cappers Bay in a care home. I was a carer.
And was that a full-time job?
Part-time job, but I lost my job. They couldn't keep me on because they couldn't afford to keep me on. I get angry when people stare at you. I don't mind when children stare, but when the adults look at me too, it gets me angry because the adults should know better.
How long have you been using British Sign Language for?
How long have you been using BSL? No? No, when you got married?
When was that?
When did you get married? 30 years ago. He has grandchildren.
Have you always been deaf?
Or you were born deaf. Yeah, fully deaf.
Before you were married, you didn't use British Sign Language?
How did you communicate? So you've been communicating with Deborah signing since he's been married?
Right. And before? The lip reading?
I lost my parents in 98. One in August, and the other one in October.
So it was quite close
Yeah,
together.
yeah. And then I decided that I was going to give it a go, living on my own through the support of Echo and places like that. They've helped me along the way.
Has Echo been a big part of your life?
Oh yeah, very much so. I wouldn't change it because it'll always be known as my second extended family.
Living in Cornwall.
I live in the new complex over the road, past More Edward Court.
Do you find any barriers to your living?
I find it mixed because I can't access public transport because I still have to rely on other people. But the good thing about it is that you're not lonely, you're not isolated. They're self-supported living. So basically you've got your own flat and you do what you like, when you like. So you just learn to cope, really.
Do you employ your own personal assistants
Yes.
using direct payments?
And unfortunately for me, I have to fund the whole thing myself because of the amount of money I have saved at the moment. So it's good news to have the money, but frustrating that one doesn't get any assistance from the council. I get disabled living allowance, but that's the only help I receive at the moment.
There are more and more disabled people now living independently in the community, and that's also true in Cornwall, I think.
Yes, I sincerely hope it is.
What kind of things do you do in your spare time? Or do you have hobbies and interests?
I like going to the theatre and to the cinemas. Try to get to Plymouth and Truro to see things. I like just spending time with friends. I think because I've been away to university and college, I've obviously built up many friendships. So I quite like just going around the country, meeting up with friends, and just, I think in terms of evenings, sort of just sat at home watching the TV. I think nature of my disability is that by the end of the day I can be quite tired. And so just to sit and relax is more beneficial than to actually go out and do anything sort of physical, sort of a bike ride or anything like that. But so actually just chilling and relaxing can be more beneficial.
We had a driver here who used to go over to the Lizard quite a bit. He named Derek. And we went over there one day and we saw the original Listen hut that was the Leonard Cheshire home. Now it's now pigsty now at the moment. They had 14 or 15 residents there. And the road going down there, the road running down there, was the runway of the airfield, which was then commanded by Group Captain Leonard Cheshire. He commanded the Air Force Station there. And we were on this road, which was the actual runway of the RAF station. And on the right of that, was this little hut, which was the original Leonard Cheshire home. But I think you'll find that originally, I think the original emphasis was on actual disability for those who were wounded in the war and who had horrific wounds and facial wounds, that sort of thing, rather than actual sickness. But I think they moved on now to encompass those who were sick rather than those who were only disabled.
Because that was the first purpose-built
That
Cheshire
was the
home, I
first
think.
one, which was only in Listen hut.
And then it moved from there to this site
To here.
here, which is near Maris Iron.
1961, I think. I remember them up here building. And I thought then, going back years ago, if I ever had to go somewhere in later life, I would come in to the Cheshire home, which of course had a good name. I always thought that I would do that. And it happened, I did.
Because that building, they built it then, it ran until almost the present day, but they've built this new bit now, haven't they?
Well, yes, I think this was actually built in 1992. Actually now 2 wings, which were built on. 28 residents here. You think for all the area there'd be more. Only 28.
But it's interesting because Cornwall's disability history is linked into because Leonard Cheshire now is an international organisation. They've got homes all over the world, haven't they?
That's right, literally.
So Cornwall's disability history is linked into that whole history of sort of disability, traditional residential accommodation for disabled people.
But most of the homes are for elderly people, men over 65, women over 60. When I came into the home, I was under 65. I could either go here or went up into the Bodmin area, but I chose here. And they had a bed here for me. And I came down, well, the room I'm in now, which I understand is the best room in the place, beautiful room. Lovely view, of course.
Medical provision. What's the medical name for your situation?
Well, it's looked on as motor neuron disease, but it's not motor neuron disease, it's something other than that. But I'd actually tested, 18 years ago now, actually, by Dr. McLean. 3 times he tested me, or once with a lady doctor there, Dr. Brennan, and she was first. And they had, in those days, their dials, a little dial, which registered how much energy you had in your muscles, how much energy you didn't have. That's all it registered. But nowadays, it's utterly different. You have a huge TV screen there. When I was initially diagnosed, it was only needles. They'd put into your fingers, your hands, and your muscles. But now it's also pads as well. They got the full range of the apparatus now, which they didn't have when I was actually tested. All these diseases in one way or another, they come out of the brain or show up in the brain somewhere. But I was actually tested, my brain was actually tested, not last year, year before, at Socialising. And I had on my head over 30 electrodes, and on my neck as well.
The doctors, I can't get in my chair, so the doctor comes here.
So you can't go to the doctor in your chair, no?
No, because it's too narrow.
Socialising in Cornwall with disabled people. Panic was an organisation that was created and run by disabled people, I think.
Yes, very much so.
Do you remember any other groups at that time which were created and run by disabled people in Cornwall?
Well, the one that comes to mind for me is CLASP, of which I was a founder member. It stands for Cornwall Leisure Activities and Sports Players. It's still going now, even though the ethos of a sports club for disabled people is somewhat out of date by modern thinking.
So when was CLASP set up?
1975, so that's quite a while ago now.
How many people were involved in CLASP then?
Well, there was a councillor called Donald Basanko who was very keen that the then new Cornwall Leisure Centre should be open to all people, including disabled people. And Will Farcher, who was appointed the manager, the first manager there, was also, so a steering committee was set up to see how the needs of disabled people could best be met. And that group that was on the committee, apart from myself, were members of Handisport and the Chuffs, there, which was another group of disabled people. And we ran a steering committee for about 3 or 4 months. And it was decided that the best thing was to form a club. So that's how it got started.
And so you mentioned the Chuffs there. They're a wheelchair dance team, are they?
Yes.
In Cornwall, yeah.
Are they still going?
I think they are still going.
I used to belong to them at one stage.
So the CLASP group, then the kind of steering committee, were they all disabled people?
Nearly all, yes. So it was very much of disabled people trying to do something that they thought would help other disabled people.
Were you in touch with disabled people elsewhere in the country at that time?
Yes, certainly. throughout the southwest, because there used to be similar clubs. I had a wonderful time when we, in the 70s and 80s, in the sense that most weekends in the summer, as a club, we'd go off and visit one of the other clubs. Most clubs put on a sports day or sports weekend, so you could spend the summer from going from one to the other.
Oh, so travelling around, going to different clubs?
Yes. We wound up with them in October. It was our turn to host everybody else, and we used Cornwall School.
And so did you have many disabled people coming to Cornwall then?
About 100 disabled people with 20 or more able-bodied helpers of varying descriptions.
And where did they stay?
At Cornwall School.
Where did you meet your wife?
Where did you meet Deborah? At the Deaf Club.
Is that Cornwall Deaf Club?
Cornwall? Deaf Club? Plymouth.
Did you notice stuff around disability then, which is different? I mean,
Well, there weren't many of us visible, but I did do riding for the disabled from the time of about 8 onwards, when the orthopaedic guy reckoned he couldn't really do a lot more, and he didn't want to open me up, which I'm really grateful to him for, because a lot of kids, my friend that went to Dame Hannah, I remember him saying to me once, don't ever let them do you with a knife, because they would experiment on you because you had CP, so you weren't exactly valuable, so they could afford to sort of mess about. But no, luckily this guy had a really good approach, so he whacked me in plaster, and that helped quite a lot. And then he said, you better go riding, see if that works. So I used to get Monday afternoons off from secondary school and be driven down by the Red Cross, who I've got to say were wonderful, every Monday afternoon, all the way down to Tiverton Cross. So 30 miles each way, and have my hours riding. And that was the only disabled people I ever met, was in that group.
So there was no other disabled kids in school?
No. Later on there were a couple. They didn't have the same sort of impairment. I think there was one guy that had brittle bones, but not massively. You know, he wasn't like a wheelchair user or anything, because he couldn't have been at that time. Although oddly enough, one of the girls I was at school with, her niece is now at Weybridge, and they put in lifts and hoists and everything.
So you say that was interesting. You said you couldn't be a wheelchair user at that time.
No,
what do you mean by that?
Well, you couldn't have go mainstream. I mean, he was still walking then, but his legs wouldn't bend, so he couldn't go up and down stairs, so he had to go there. Because he was just as clever as me. He didn't get his degree till he was 40 plus, and it was like an albatross around his neck until then, because he was told he was stupid, you know. He obviously wasn't, but he just never got the chance, really.
Participants: Clara Allen, Dr. Claire Tregaskis, Ian MacArthur, Lorna Richards, David May, Diana Johnson, Reverend Don Whitting and Paul Simmons. Interviewers: Dr. Theo Blackmore and Dean Inwood. Transcriber: JHTS Transcription Services. Subtitles: Azook Community Interest Company. Disability Cornwall and Isles of Scilly. Empower, Assist, Facilitate. Supported by the National Lottery through the Heritage Lottery Fund. All interviews recorded in 2013. For more information about the project, please email theo@disabilitycornwall.org.uk.